Welcome to episode 8 of the 15-Minute Coffee Podcast with Brandon Salazar, your go-to destination for expert perspectives and valuable insights from the world of business. Today I'm here with Varun Patel, the creator of Blue Hand Coding. And before we get into the questions, I would like to thank Varun for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start with, can you share a little bit about your background?
So my name is Varun Patel. I am a first year going on second year computer science major at Georgia Tech. I started coding when I was 14-ish. Been doing a lot of stuff in that space. I make TikToks nowadays where I work with a lot of companies and stuff like that. I think the motto of what my channel is over engineering solutions to non-existent problems. So I just build kind of whatever I want to. Um, that's kind of just like that's kind of what I do in a nutshell nowadays.
And did you happen to do robotics in high school, middle
Uh,
school?
Yeah, in middle school I did I think it's FLL at first Lego League. I wasn't any good at it, but that's I guess I did do that.
Nice. So what would be the best computer science related project you've worked on during your time in college and why?
So in college, um, I never really had the chance to work on a lot of like party projects, I guess. I worked on a lot of like silly stuff for my TikTok. But I would say the best project I did was probably this app called Speechy. It's an app I deployed to the App Store. And essentially what it was, or what it is, sorry, is an app where you like just talking to your phone. It like listens while you're giving a speech or an audible presentation. And it just gives you feedback about your speech. It's like, oh, I was talking too fast, or you had too much like word redundancy, or the content of your speech was not, appropriate for the audience that you were speaking to. So that was an app I made, I think around December or January, December of 22 and then January of 23. So a little bit before I got into college, but I used like Flutter, I used my own like Python backend. So it was pretty comprehensive. And it sort of brought together all of like the different elements that I've sort of picked up across the years.
And you said that was made just by you, not in the team, right?
Yeah, just by me, yeah.
Nice. So something that I would like to highlight is Blue Hand Coding. So what inspired you to start Blue Hand Coding?
Yeah, so I started Blue Hand coding, I want to say June or July of 2021. So we were just coming off like COVID and stuff like that. It was the summer before my junior year of high school. And like for the longest time, I've always been sort of like into like making movies, like at home, like on a camcorder and stuff like that. So like I wasn't super new to like making videos. And like when I was a kid, I used to like make YouTube videos just like everyone else. Um, and I eventually got to this point where everyone was like, every time you make a project, make sure you put it on like GitHub or something like that. And I just was so tired of writing. Like genuinely, I was so tired of writing READMEs. Like I hated writing them. And doing like a parts breakdown. I wish I could just like make a video. And then I was like, what if I just started like making videos about all the projects I did so that I can bring together like my like for like videography, but then I can also just like not have to deal with READMEs ever again. So that's why I started just making videos for fun.
Nice. And talking about using GitHub to add up a lot of code and making READMEs, have you been to any hackathons?
I have. I did. My first hackathon was online during COVID, and I hated it. I think it was because it was online. But this year I did Hack GT, and that was like it was a pretty good experience. I had a good time. We didn't win, which kind of sucked, but I had a good time because it was with friends and like people were more enthusiastic, and we had like the whole like we're gonna pull an all-nighter culture figured out. So it was definitely more enjoyable in person.
Yeah, the all-nighter thing starts to get less and less fun once it starts hitting at least 2 or 3 a.m. because
Oh
then
yeah.
it's just you and coding and it's
Becomes so
brutal.
painful and irritable, but
Yeah,
it's worth it at the end of the day.
yeah. So how has Blue Hand Coding changed your life?
This is actually a really good question. I wrote my Common App about this question. Um, I think Blue Hand Coding has like really changed my life. I feel like nowadays a lot of CS majors share a lot of the concerns about like job security. with AI and stuff. But I don't feel like afraid of those things, due in part to like Blue Hand coding, because it has given me such a valuable like ability to connect with people. Like I've been able to connect with people from Microsoft, from Google, and they're just like, hey, we just want to like reach out, like just saying we like what you're building. If you ever need anything, just like hit me up on LinkedIn. That's like a crazy thing. Because people are so friendly and when they see you, they just want to kind of help you and uplift you. And then aside from like that, I've had the really unique ability of working with like a lot of cool companies. Um, Most recently, I started working with a company called Revolver, which is sort of like social media for professional engineers. And it's just fun, to meet with like professionals and do work with them. I worked with Arduino, uh, they're great. And then Raspberry Pi sent over some, stuff when I first started, making these TikToks. So definitely a lot of companies supporting like, my goals and my creativity. So again, I wouldn't be able to do those things without without them noticing me in the first place. And then I think in a sort of self-enrichment way, I have found myself to become a better like speaker. It's easier for me to condense, as CS majors, we work with such complex ideas, or we can work with such complex ideas. So having the soft skills and the ability to sort of condense those into something that's more digestible is really important. And I feel like when I'm making those TikToks, my goal isn't necessarily to be like, this is the stack I used, these are the tools I'm working with, like, no one cares about that. People just care about like sort of like the surface level, like can you basically communicate the fundamentals, the bare bones of what you're working with. And I feel like my ability to do that has definitely like shot up.
Yeah.
Um,
And that
but yeah,
skill is definitely valuable. So, in one of my previous podcasts with Sean Pietrowski from Microsoft, he works as a technology strategist, and he says that it's one of the most valuable skills to be able to understand high level coding or coding to some extent, and then be able to explain it to others because not everyone's going to understand the high level coding. So he
yeah,
says being able to understand both sides and effectively communicate it is a very valuable skill. So that's pretty cool that you're already able to see that in yourself.
yeah.
All right. So then how have you ever considered making Blue Hand Coding into a startup?
Um, this is an interesting question. I get asked this a lot actually. People were like, is Blue Hand Coding a startup? Like, what is Blue Hand Coding? Um, I I don't know honestly if I would turn Blue Hand Coding into a startup. Um, in that same vein, I've often been asked, like, actually yesterday I was asked this. I've been asked, like, why don't you like sell the products you make? Um, and I mean, I see their point. Like, I can definitely like there's so many avenues for me to monetize, right? But I don't know. For me, it kind of just kills like the reason why I do this. I don't really do this for the money. I do it because it's kind of just like fun. It keeps me on
Yeah.
my toes. And I really like I've gotten so like across the years, I've gotten so many good messages about people like, like thanks for making these videos. Like it was really like it really got me into CIS and now I'm doing this. I used to teach and I had a student um who told me like, yeah, I could not for the life of me figure out Python. He was already like doing CS because I could not for the life of me figure out Python. Your course has sort of helped me get through that, and then I picked up a new job. So like stuff like that is like when you make these things freely accessible, it just I don't know, everything just the world becomes a better place. Um, so that's why I've always been hesitant to sort of put like a price tag on like products or to sort of put like a paywall behind, my CAD files and stuff like that. Um, and also if I did make a startup, I don't even know what it would be about. Like for me, like TikTok is like the perfect sort of box that this thing sort of just fits into.
Yeah, and I feel what you mean because it's hard to at this age, at least I believe we're the same age, we're both freshmen in college.
Yeah.
It's hard to put a value to skills. It's well, so I know what you mean. So putting value to your skills is a little bit hard because it's still growing, but definitely labeling yourself as the product is something that's going to help you in the long run, and you're doing that very well. When someone thinks of blue hand coding, they're going to think of Varun Patel,
Yeah.
the guy behind the camera, the guy behind all the coding, the guy behind building. So you're definitely making that label for yourself. So that's one thing that is very noticeable and important to do.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So then, how does your teaching experience in programming contribute to the learning to your further learning of the language?
So I used to teach programming on this website called teach.tv. Um, they kind of ripped me off. They haven't paid me yet. It's been 2 years, um, but I taught back in August, September of 2022. And I taught for I think 3, 4 months before like my courses kind of just like ended. Like I had nothing more to teach basically. Um, and when I was teaching, like have you ever heard of like tutorial hell?
Maybe is that like a
It's
channel?
basically the thing where it's like you watch a video and you think there's so much more to learn. So you just keep watching videos. You spend your whole time just like
Yeah,
going through tutorials and you just spend your time in tutorial hell. Like you don't make anything.
I
Uh,
feel that because there's like 20,000 things you can learn once you learn one thing.
exactly. Like there's so much to learn.
Yeah.
So like you get caught in that. And I think when I was making my lesson plan, my curriculums, whatever they're called, I was super like, okay, with these people, like my students, I'm gonna like have one day where I just teach them something, and then the next 3 days we're gonna work. We're just gonna work with that. Like we're just gonna build stuff, and I'm just gonna encourage them to sort of take their own take on certain projects and whatnot. And I feel like that sort of teaching principle was really helpful for when I started picking up work in college. So in college, the most recent CS classes I took Intro to Java. I can clear that, unfortunately. And then I just take data structures and algorithms. And sort of taking what I learned in lectures and then practically deploying them, which is kind of harder with DSA because like no one wants to make like a DS project or anything like that. But like with Java, right? Like we learned Java effects one day. And I made like this like drawing game just so I could just like practice my panes or whatever, my callbacks and all that stuff. Um, and it just kind of gives you a more like intimate understanding of the code rather than just like reading it off like a lecture slide. So that's definitely I think that's easily like the biggest thing that I took away from teaching. Like apply what you learn and don't sort of be like, oh, I need to learn X, Y, Z in this order. You can learn X, spend some time with X, work, practice, make something with it, and then you can learn Y. Like it's not chronological and there's no rush. So, take things at your own pace and just have fun with it.
Yeah, so to highlight that, basically, so at a hackathon, I was at the College of New Jersey, TCNJ. It's in New Jersey. It's a few minutes away from my college. Um, I was told by these people I met from Singapore who were actually interning in New York City. They were I met them at the hackathon. They were like, Brandon, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, the code matters. It matters what your code, but it matters 20 times more how you present it. And like it really sinks in like every once in a while. Like, yeah, at the hackathon, they're asking you to present your coding and how it works. They're not asking you to read down every line of code. They want to see how the business plan works. If you want to start a startup, they want to know how they're going to make money. If you want to make it into a software, they want to know the purpose and functionality. So while
Yeah.
it's about the code, it's also about how it's understood and explained in a business sense. So it's not always about how good you could be at coding.
Yeah.
So that's
There's
pretty good.
definitely more to it. It's pretty multi. There's more. Yeah, you're right. There's just more to it.
Yeah. And then with our final question, what is the best coding language and why?
Okay. So this is actually tough for me. Okay, so languages that I work with or have worked with recently, Python, Dart for my app. And then like I don't know what to call it. It's like Arduino's implementation or sort of flavor of C++ plus plus or C or whatever. Um, and then Java. So immediately I'm gonna take I think my favorite language is actually Dart, which I feel like is gonna be a pretty I don't think anyone like uses Dart really that much. I
I
know
don't think I've
like
ever used it.
yeah, Dart's interesting. But basically, like for context, Dart is the language that powers Flutter, and then Flutter is multi-platform like development. So like you write your Flutter code, it runs on iOS, it runs on Android, it runs on like a web browser. So that's the whole premise of it. And I've just found it to be really, I don't know, really easy to use. I've enjoyed it. I think syntactically it's pretty similar to Java, kinda. Um, but like the dependencies set up and all that stuff is it's pretty nice. And the fact that it just works with multi-platforms is it's a thumbs up.
Yeah, so I actually the most similar thing I could say that I tried with cross-platform. Actually, it's not cross-platform at all. but it's like for mobile development, it's Swift. I
Yeah.
was cooking up with that with some tutorials for a few weeks, and then it
Yeah.
got too advanced, I feel.
I had the same issue with Swift. I don't know what it was about Swift. I have a lot of friends, or my best friend actually picked up Swift like really well. Is also like a freshman with us, and he started coding over when school started, and he just picked up Swift just like that. I just could not for the life of me like get behind Swift. It just seems so, I don't know,
Yeah,
verbose. So that's why I sort of fumbled onto the Flutter. It just felt a little bit better, easier to use.
yeah. I mean, also I didn't like how slow it would be, but then again, I did get like a $200 MacBook, so that might
Yeah,
have been why.
that might be
That might have been why.
what screwed with you. I'm not gonna lie.
Anyways, you want to shout out your social medias for your Blue Hand coding?
Oh yeah. Check out www.tiktok.com/ at sign Blue Hand Coding and
You
everything
put the
else.
whole you put the whole
Honestly,
URL,
just look up Blue Hand Coding and then go check all that stuff out.
put the HTTPS before it too.
Oh yeah, of course. Network security is
HTTPS.
not a joke.
All right. Thank you for sharing your valuable insights and expertise with us. That wraps up episode 8 of the 15-minute coffee podcast with Brandon Salazar. We hope you've enjoyed gaining insights from our guests and exploring the world of business with us. Don't forget to check out our podcast on our social media at the 15-minute coffee podcast on YouTube and Instagram for upcoming episodes. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.